Yep, recording.
What's up?
What's up? This is a podcast where we're talking about movies and stuff.
Yep, movies, TV, things you may be watching during
Yeah,
this possible lockdown time. I know that different states and cities have been loosening things up, but chances are you're going to spend a lot of time at home. So,
yeah. Chances are those cities that just opened are going to get closed again soon. You never know.
so
Yeah,
in the
so I mean,
meantime,
in the meantime, since like all the movie theaters are closed, we're going to talk about streaming, like movies that we can stream, TV shows on all
mhm,
those platforms. And yeah, so we this week, Monday, May the 4th, amazing, Star Wars Day. And
yep,
so it aired. So we started with like the Clone Wars TV show has been kind of like ramping down recently, and on May the 4th, there we like they showed the last ever episode of Clone Wars, which was amazing. And like I've been watching Clone Wars for I don't know, like on and off for years. And then with Disney Plus, like I just watched all the episodes again, like back like before Christmas, like before quarantining. But like you, Michael, you
mhm.
started watching it recently. So what's your opinion about that?
Yeah. Well, over the years, I kind of heard things about Clone Wars, like I would hear names here and there like Ahsoka Tano and Rex, but I never really knew who these people were. And I figured since this is a quarantine time, actually not since it's because it's quarantine time, but just because I felt like it, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go out of order and watch it the way I want to watch it. And I had a feeling that these last four episodes were gonna lead into or cross over with Revenge of the Sith, which I've seen a few
Hmm.
times.
Yeah,
So I use this as my introduction to Clone Wars.
yeah,
And the first episode I saw was the first episode of the Siege of Mandalore,
yeah.
which is
Episode
apparently a really big
9.
battle, episode 9. And I was blown away by just the star, just how elaborate it felt and the way like it told the story. And it almost reminded me of The Mandalorian in that it was great storytelling, it was epic, but it felt like Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, like
It's
they're
like,
both run by the same guy. Like they're both run by a guy
Dave.
called Dave Filoni.
Mhm.
Was like the mastermind behind Clone Wars, and he used to be an animator on Avatar: The Last Airbender. So like this guy has seen some stuff, and he's friends with George Lucas. So apparently like he's like the George Lucas whisperer, I think,
Yeah.
like because he always knows what George is gonna say.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Oh man, I wonder if there were ever whispers. Like, I don't want to jinx it, but I wonder if there were any whispers of him taking over for Kathleen Kennedy.
yeah. I didn't know if we are gonna talk about that today, but let's talk about that.
Let's
Like
just talk
Kathleen
about it
Kennedy.
because
Well, because like
I always
I
felt
mean
like
they yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I always felt like that was the problem with oh, is the cars are the cars loud outside, by the way?
I can hear them, but like, hey, it's we're trying to keep it real.
Yeah. So the thought I always had with Star Wars is that some of the movies, not as part of Star Wars lore, but just as movies on its own, some of the movies that from like the newer movies that have come out have been good, but it always felt like this universe needed a Kevin Feige.
Yeah,
It needed somebody that felt like a fan, but was so into it that whatever they made felt authentic to the source material.
yeah,
And the biggest criticism I heard from all these movies, even the good ones, was that it all felt like fan fiction. Well, after watching Clone Wars and after getting interested in going back to older episodes and then watching the movie, it feels like this is the guy that'll make things that feel just absolutely like Star Wars,
yeah,
while expanding the universe, while doing things in a way that will please both, the hardcore fans and casual fans. because he
Yeah.
had a big part in The Mandalorian too, even though that was technically Jon Favreau's show.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Well, like,
one?
yeah, it's like Jon Favreau took over, like, like the filming aspect of it because he has experience shooting live action. And Dave Filoni was more there for like the story, I think.
Yeah.
But I heard that, well, because like Dave Filoni, he directed the first episode of Mandalorian.
Uh,
And so like you get that Star Wars vibe like right. Like he got it right. The problem with like the sequel trilogy, as it's known,
mhm.
was that yeah, there wasn't, like I've seen a lot of like, people ranting on YouTube about this stuff, and like the main takeaway is that everyone knows that each movie was planned like individually, or it
Mhm.
felt like that. So it was like, okay, let's get the first movie, then hey, let's get a totally different person to do the second movie, even though we don't know where this whole arc is going to go in the end.
Right.
Like, I'm sure J.J. Abrams had an idea of where he wanted things to go.
Mhm.
And what's his name? Ryan Johnson like took a shit on it. And and then J.J. Abrams, when he came back for episode 9, he took a shit on what Ryan Johnson did. So it was sort of like everyone's like shitting on each other. It's just,
Yeah.
hey, trying to keep it PG 13 here. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Oh, well, whatever. Y'all have
Hey,
heard these words.
yeah,
Yeah, episodes 7, 8, and 9 was basically like episode 7 was introducing you to this new part of the world and these new characters. And then episode 8 was let's change everything. And then episode 9 was I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
yeah. No, it's like because episode 7 was okay. It was like a copy of the original Star Wars, like the original trilogy. Kind of, it was like New Hope again. Like, hey, sand planet, like desert planet.
Yeah.
Like young person on desert planet. Doesn't know who their parents are. That's my heater. I don't know if you can hear that, but hopefully during the next podcast you won't be hearing this anymore. Uh,
They're like that heater is like a character in our podcast at this
yeah,
point.
he's always trying to be like, get on with it, man, get on with it.
Yeah.
But then like Ryan Johnson, I feel like the movie episode 8, The Last Jedi, could have been he really, I think like he followed the arcs of characters like Kylo Ren. Like he's one of the only characters who has like an a full arc that's actually being fulfilled by the end of like this trilogy. Like he started bad, got
Mhm.
worse and worse, and then he like redeems himself, right?
Right, right.
And but like I think because like I know like John Boyega, the guy who plays Finn, he was
Mhm.
really pissed off about like how the movies like turned out. I think he was really pumped after episode 7, but then
Mhm.
like after the Last Jedi, he was like he like Ryan Johnson, the way he wrote Finn, totally it felt like he totally ignored what Finn had learned during episode 7. Like he
Yeah.
became like okay, he realized like he has to be with his friends, he has to protect his
Mhm.
friends, he has to fight for Rey. And then at the
Yeah.
beginning of the episode, of episode 7, he's essentially like, "Hey, I'm gonna jump ship because like I don't want to be blown up,"
Yeah.
and like totally forgetting. I feel like it would have been because like that's where he introduced Rose, like who's like
Mhm.
a very controversial character.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind the character at all, but I feel like it would
Mhm.
have been cool if it was like Finn, if like their roles had been exchanged in a way, like because like her sister just
Yeah.
died, and
Mhm.
maybe her character would be like, hey, I only joined the resistance to be with my sister. Now she's dead. Like I'm jumping ship. Like I don't give a shit. And
Mhm.
then Finn is like, yeah, I learned during the last movie that I should be like loyal to my friends, so you should stay here, kind of thing. And and I
No,
think they could have had something similar, but like just that change, I feel would have
yeah.
changed the movie totally, and would have been a bit more like because The Last Jedi is a good movie in itself, but it doesn't
Yeah.
fit at all within like the Star Wars continuity. Like it doesn't fit.
I, it's like to me, all three movies felt like good standalone movies,
Yeah,
but when you put them
yeah.
together with the
You're like,
same
what?
characters, there was no flow. It felt like
There's no
it
flow.
felt like
Yeah,
people fighting over what Star Wars is going to be. It's like you're
yeah,
watching. It's like when you're. The best metaphor I can think of is that like when you're watching the movie, while you're watching the movie, you're watching the infighting going on
Yeah,
about like what to do with Star Wars
yeah. They're like,
because
yeah,
they
well,
did try to
maybe they
keep
should go.
George Lucas out of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, and then it's like, well, this is boring. Let's just make them go to like a casino planet and see what that does. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about how the rich are like shitbags. And
Yeah.
like, you know,
Original. Yeah.
yeah. Mm, social justice warrior, like Star
Yeah.
Wars. Like, I don't like a lot of people criticize the sequel trilogy for being like woke, but I didn't see it that much. But you can still, it's sort of like it doesn't feel honest. Like, that's the thing. It's like you can be
Yeah.
a social justice warrior in your
Yeah.
movie.
Because Star Wars was always like diverse and this
Yeah.
and that, but I don't know if it's because it came out around social justice stuff or it didn't feel honest. That's a concept that I wish could get explored more, not just in like art school or creative classes. Like I want that idea to be explored more of like what it means for something to feel honest.
Yeah.
Because people know what that means, but people don't know how to describe it. Like people just know that they walked out of some of a movie thinking that I either liked it or didn't like it. And when you can't put your
Yeah.
finger on what it was, it's usually has something to do with honesty.
Yeah, no, it's like, going back to like Kathleen Kennedy, it's like she tried to kind of put all these issues, like it was just like an add-on, it's like, hey, let's talk about this and that.
Yeah.
And yeah, does it make sense to the story? I don't give a shit. Uh,
Yeah.
you're like, weave it into the story, like don't just like plop it in,
Yeah.
because like that casino planet thing, like so I think I'm going to talk about this during every episode, like just Casino Planet. What's it called? I can't remember.
Casino Planet. That's
Casino
it.
Planet in episode 7, like The Last Jedi. So like Finn and Rose go to this planet, and Rose talks about how all rich peoples are like just like douchebags,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, okay, sure, and then it's like, yeah, they also like race these horses and whatever, but then you're like, okay, we're supposed to find a like expert cracker, like someone who's going to open
Yeah.
doors,
Yeah.
shields and shit. All they do is get locked up, they get arrested, and then find some random dude who says he's going to do that for them, essentially.
Yeah.
Like that's the story. And then you're like, okay, like they never found
You
the
didn't
actual
need
guy.
that.
They
Yeah.
did find the actual guy, the guy that they found, that they immediately trust, even though like he just got arrested for they don't know what reason.
Yeah.
uh, it's
In
sort
a
of like,
TV show that would make sense, but they did that too much in this trilogy where half of them had an A story and half the people had a B story. And it's like
yeah,
you don't really do that for movies, but they tried.
no, it's well, I mean, like it just like I think even though I mean, even though Ryan Johnson, if Ryan Johnson had still like directed episode 8, even though someone had like a good vision of where the trilogy was going, I feel
Mhm.
like it would have been like, he could have subverted the genre like he did in a way,
Yeah.
and but still would have stayed true to the story. Because like it doesn't
Right.
feel like, he was like, yeah, okay, let's do some awesome stuff like spaceships exploding.
Yeah.
Like, like David Filoni, he talks about that in the this documentary series called Gallery, like
Hmm.
Gallery the Mandalorian. Like I put it on the Instagram page, and he talks about like what his thoughts are about Star Wars,
Hmm.
and like he's talking to all the different directors, like who directed the different episodes of The Mandalorian, like what's her name, Dallas Bryce Howard,
Oh yeah.
Taika Waititi,
Mhm.
I can't remember the other names, and like
There's
they're all
Dev
like
Rochelle
completely
and Dave Filoni.
consumed by, yeah, yeah, and then they're all like just like looking at Filoni like, man, this guy's like Yoda, you know.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, like he knows what Star Wars is about, and he really encapsulates it like really well. But yeah, I encourage people to watch that. Like I put it on the Instagram page and stories. Like people should watch that. It's because they just talk about. I think I don't know how many episodes, but episode 2 came out this week.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Actually, yesterday, I think. And like the first episode came out on May the 4th, and they're just
Hmm.
talking about like how it's so cool to be on the Mandalorian set. Like you want to be there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just, you know, and then like
I,
and then they have they had Kathleen Kennedy and they don't let her talk. Like essentially, like she just says two things like, "Well, I was there during Indiana Jones," and, and then
Say
you're like,
Indiana Jones.
"I was like, yeah, what did you do there? I was like an assistant, whatever." And they're like, "Okay,
Yeah,
cool." She
that's the
was
thing.
surrounded by very talented people, but yeah. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead, cut you off.
Yeah, no, Kathleen Kennedy was good at building franchises that were basically just movies that were based on movies. But at this point, Star Wars, it's like nothing from Star Wars right now feels like a side thing. It's an entire universe that
Yeah,
encapsulates animated series, books, encyclopedias, movies, and
yeah,
spin-offs and here and there. And yeah, and Dave Filoni right now feels like the kind of guy that would, respect all of that.
yeah.
That it's more than just a movie franchise at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's become this guy's life in a way.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So let's move on to like recent Star Wars news. So the actor who played Jango Fett in
hmm
Attack of the Clones, Temuera Morrison, I hope I pronounced that
Tamura
correctly.
Morrison.
Temuera Morrison, thank you. He is coming back as Boba Fett in season 2 of The
hmm
Mandalorian. How
Yep.
do you feel about that?
I am happy. I'm happy as hell. He's
Me
a
too.
very underrated actor. The first time I saw Tamura Morrison, it had nothing to do with Star Wars, nothing. I didn't even know he was in Star Wars. It was this movie called Once for Warriors.
Hmm.
It was a New Zealand movie with him and Cliff Curtis and a lot of like it's basically an all Maori actor movie. And like if you see him in that movie, you would have thought he would have been like a good Bane. You would have thought he would have been like a good Hulk.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, kind of looks like the
He's
Hulk.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Like
but
he's
like, yeah,
to me is one of like the most underutilized actors of all time.
yeah.
And I was nervous when the Boba Fett movie was announced with Josh Trank
Uh,
because there was rumors about Michael Fassbender playing Boba Fett.
oh no, no,
No, no, that has nothing to do with
no.
anything. He's not too bad.
I mean, like, he's supposed to be a clone of, like, he's supposed to be a clone, right? Like he's a clone of Jango Fett, and Jango Fett was played by a Maori actor called Tamura Morrison. So like, it's normal to have him back, like, because he's supposed to be in his 40s or 50s, I think, by the time you get to like the era of the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like around Tamura Morrison's age. And
hmm
yeah, I don't know. Just for people who might not remember him, he's Aquaman's dad
hmm
in Aquaman.
And the fact that he's coming back, like, I haven't seen all of the Clone Wars animated series, so I don't know who lives or
Yeah.
dies. But if he's coming back, then I don't know. Rex, is he still alive?
Rex,
Um,
I think he's still alive. Like a lot of people, like there's in the Return of the Jedi, there's like a guy with a white beard, and
mhm,
everyone thinks that that's Rex. It's just that they didn't plan it that way. It's just like they,
yeah.
because like Rex shows up in Star Wars Rebels
hmm
TV show as like an old guy with a white beard and everything, and I think that's why they try to make him fit. It's like, hey, see, like he was there, you know, we didn't plan it, but he's there.
Ah,
Ah, you know. And yeah, that would be awesome. Like you might have like Rex versus Boba Fett, which would be awesome. Imagine
oh
that.
yeah. Or whatever clones are still living, or whatever clones are. If there's clones still hiding around, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I don't know. Like they're supposed to be pretty old because they age way faster. And
Yeah.
but Boba Fett, I think is the only altered clone. So like he just grew up at a normal pace.
Yeah.
So they're probably gonna have to de-age. If they have like old Rex, they're
hmm
either gonna have to age him for Rex or de-age him for Boba Fett. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think they announced a release date for season 2 of The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
but I
It
feel like The
really,
Mandalorian, yeah, it's saving the franchise, to be honest.
yeah, and it sounds like that's not the only animated character they're bringing into live action.
Yeah,
They're announcing, they didn't announce it, but the rumors were, it's unconfirmed, but the rumors were that Rosario Dawson was going to play
Ahsoka,
the older version of Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka,
So they're just bringing
Ahsoka.
in, yes, they're just bringing in like everybody from the cartoons at this point. I didn't realize how big the cartoons were until I don't know until recently because they're
It's like
really
it's
trying to
so
make an effort to like incorporate it.
yeah, it's like because it's the best part of Star Wars, like that's come out in the last 10 years. Like it's the best version of Star Wars.
Hmm.
Just like the Clone Wars. I started watching some of the old episodes of Clone Wars, and I realized how much better the computer animation is for the last season. Like they
Oh
added so much detail. Like it's just amazing.
yeah, no,
Uh,
that
yeah,
one shot during the Siege of Mandalore when it's like spinning around. I think it was like two of the characters, and then you saw like all the Mandalorians and
yeah,
everybody fighting each other in the sky. That was
it's
like
amazing.
I haven't seen something cinematic like that from even a live action show like that in a long time. So that
No,
was
it's
great.
yeah. No, it's just like when I saw like a lot of people compare Ahsoka to Rey,
Mhm.
because they're both women. Things like they're different characters and they come from different
Yeah,
places, but it feels like, like they might have underserved the Rey character just because like all the different directors had like different ideas of what that should be. And
yeah,
Ahsoka is like, yeah, I've seen, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about like people ranting about Star Wars. But like one guy
yeah,
was like, yeah, Ahsoka is like what Rey wishes she would be like, you know?
yeah,
Then it's like it's totally different. Like, I mean, personally, like Rey has that whole baggage of being Palpatine's like granddaughter, so she has like a lot of spoiler
yeah,
alert. But I think
yeah,
like if you didn't watch Star Wars already, you're probably never gonna watch Star Wars anyway. I mean, Episode 9.
yeah.
Uh,
It's on Disney Plus. Watch it
it's on
right
Disney Plus.
now.
Watch it. But like,
Yeah.
there's some movies that I call like skippable movies. That I like
Hmm.
to just skip through things because like this is boring. I want to get to the good part. And like
Yeah,
Rise of Skywalker is kind of like that. I'm just like,
yeah.
okay, this is boring. Let's go to the next part. Next part. You know, which
Let's go
hasn't
watch
happened to me with the
this
Clone
part.
Wars. You know, but then hey, it's you gotta take it where you can. Yeah, so talking about another Kiwi, Taika Waititi is going to be the next guy to make a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, this
Isn't
is
like
this,
awesome,
this,
right?
this
He's
surprised me.
saving
'Cause-
he's saving
Yeah,
franchises. Like he saved Thor, now he's
yeah.
saving Star Wars.
See, this surprises me just because like they've tried for a long time to make Star Wars like over the past few years, it's been very serious. And the one time they tried to make something really comedic with Solo, like it basically crashed and burned, especially behind the scenes. But it looks like they're giving funny Star Wars another chance. Taika
Yeah.
Waititi.
It was like the last episode of Mandalorian was directed by Taika Waititi. Like, there's this whole sequence about the two stormtroopers on bikes, and
Oh
they're just
yeah.
like shooting,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that was like Taika Waititi, like, you can feel his influence there. There's like shit, like the gun doesn't work, and they're just trying to shoot like a rock or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, amazing, amazing. But I'm looking forward to it. Like, I don't know what it's going to be about. Like, if it's about Skywalker, like, what's your guess?
What was that?
What are you guessing the Star Wars movie is going to be about?
Psh. You know what? I can't
The
figure it
hardest
out because
question.
like there's been so much announcements over the past few years of like who was going to be developing either a TV like a Disney Plus show
Yeah,
or a movie for Star Wars. They
yeah,
went through names like the creator of Russian Doll, the creator of
yeah. I heard about that.
it's like
Woke
there's
alert, woke alert.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, there's like
yeah,
all these there were so much announcements and then Ryan Johnson was supposed to have his own trilogy
yeah,
and then the Game of
yeah.
his
The Throne
ones
is,
when so I
and
was
that
like
and that totally fucked up Game of Thrones. Like they were finishing early because they were like, "Hey, we're gonna direct a Star Wars movie. Fuck Game of Thrones."
yeah.
And and yeah, and then in the end, like the end of Game of Thrones wasn't very good, and
Yeah.
they never got a Star Wars movie. So they get what they deserve.
So at this point like I'm not even thinking about what the movies are going to be about. I just want to wait until like an announcement is actually made. Like if
Yeah,
I don't see a logo for this movie in my head it's not even happening yet.
yeah.
Like
I think like because like Star Wars announced, I think it was back in March.
Yeah.
They're gonna start a whole. They're gonna talk about the Republic, but like before Sidious and like before the prequels.
Yeah.
They're gonna. I think it's called the High Republic, and they're gonna publish a bunch of books about it and do some comic books and whatever. So I'm wondering if it's gonna be they're gonna go like the Marvel route. Like every time Marvel is gonna bring up a new hero, they kind of they tell their comic book writers that, hey, we're gonna have Black Panther. Just write a bunch of Black Panther comic books before we
Yeah. Yeah.
get the movie out, right? So it's kind of like, hey, we're gonna talk about the High Republic. Let's do some High Republic, like fiction, books,
Yeah.
novels, comic books, and see, if people like it, what they like, and then we'll make a movie about it. You know,
Yeah. I don't know.
because
Maybe
like,
that's what he's doing. Maybe he's doing the
yeah,
first High Republic. Yeah.
yeah, because like it's a whole strategy, man. It's just like, they're like, hey, people hate the High Republic. We're not gonna make a movie about it,
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, yeah, but I'm always looking forward to any Taika Waititi movie, to be honest with you. Whether it was Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Nerds, I don't know.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
dude,
and I still got to get around to Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People.
dude, you
It's
have to watch that. You have to watch those two movies. They're okay. People listening, I don't know if you can stream that on Netflix. I think Hunt for the Wilder People is on Hulu, I think.
mm,
And Boy, I don't know. I don't know where it is. Uh, but yeah, if you can find that Boy by Taika Waititi. It was like his big, I think that was like his big movie before Hunt for the Wilder People. Hunt for
mm,
like Boy was like big in New Zealand, I think, and
mhm,
like the oceanic area, and
yeah,
like Australia stuff like that. And then Hunt for the Wilder People, I think, got him a lot more international acclaim. And I think his movie right after that was like Thor, I think.
yeah,
you know, and he's in both movies. Like he's always in every movie he does. Like even in The Mandalorian, he's just like he's that robot IG.
yeah. It's funny because like they took a risk on him,
Hmm.
like Marvel took a risk on him, and now
Paid off.
he's a part
Yeah.
of like how many franchises now?
Yeah.
Holy crap! Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk since we're talking about Taika Waititi. I'll just jump into like What We Do in the Shadows, which
Ooh.
was another movie that he made,
Mhm.
which is now a TV show on FX, and you can also watch it on. I watch it on Hulu. I don't have a TV. I just watch stuff online. But as most people, I think our age, like, we're, we just like stream stuff. But yeah, so like What We Do in the Shadows is like a documentary, a mockumentary. It's kind of like The Office, but imagine like real like vampires in the real world, like nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, and the TV show, like the movie was in New Zealand, and the TV show takes place in Staten Island, of all places.
Okay. It's funny.
Imagine like these 600-year-old like vampires who like dress in robes and shit, and their neighbors are all like, "Hey," it's
Yeah.
like, because like there's an episode where they go. Okay, I don't want to spoil, but like there's this awesome episode where they get invited to the Super Bowl party, like a Super Bowl party like viewing, and they think it's a superb owl party, and they just talk about like, I can't wait to see the owl. The owl is, they say it's superb, you know. Like it's an amazing TV show. Like I really like, you can binge all of season one on Hulu, and then I think season two they started showing episodes like 3 weeks ago. So I think they're up to actually they're up to episode 4 or 5 or something. And but like it's a really cool TV show. Really cool. Like that's my plug of the week. Like that was a Friday night binge. I think we should do
Nice.
that. Like that. That's like that's gonna be a thing.
Nice.
it's,
The
it's
Friday binge of the week.
yeah, the binge of the week. Yeah. Yeah.
And it looks like that wasn't the only show you saw. You saw a show called, you can pronounce it for me.
Yeah. It's called Medici. And it's
Yeah.
based on the true story of these guys who essentially ruled. They weren't like kings or stuff like that. They were bankers, and just like through machinations and like just being cunning and just like helping the right people for and looking good doing it, and they were ruling Florence for like I don't know how many generations. So like season one, it's all on Netflix. Season one has the guy from Game of Thrones, Rob Stark, the first of the Starks to get like his, no, actually the second one to get his head chopped off. But uh,
Right?
and what's weird is that you have a bunch of like Game of Thrones actors in there. Like like the way I mean the way I showed it on Instagram was that like Medici is like Game of Thrones, like all the intrigue and like the political, backstabbing and stuff like that, without except you don't have dragons and you don't have ice zombies. So
Mhm.
it's just like the cerebral part of it, but it's like really interesting. Like you get like season one is you get like the first generation of
Mhm.
Medici like ruled it, and like the second and third seasons talk about that guy's grandson who actually got
Mhm.
into a war with the Pope, like in 14 something, like just because he killed some people or something. So it's just like,
Yeah.
you're like, this guy went into a war against like a major, you know, leader of his own religion. So it's like,
Yeah.
like back in those days, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, there's also some sex going on, not as much nudity as Game of Thrones, but it's just like it's a
Mhm.
nice kind of relaxing thing. And season two, actually, like Romeo and Juliet was based on like these guys, like the whole like Capulets versus whatever thing. Like you can see it like in the TV show, like some guy gets killed at church. You know, it's just like, the good old day when
The
men were
girl
men, and they wore tights and nice robes,
for
you
glory.
know. Ah. But there's like that guy, fuck, like he played the first Punisher movie. Like he plays like the King of Naples. He's just like a badass.
Wait, the
And
guy from The Punisher,
like the
the
first Punisher movie that came out like years ago. I know, not the
Thomas
first one,
Jane.
like the second one. Not shit. I have to. This is real time.
Was it Dolph Lundgren?
No, King of Naples actor.
Prince-
So it's like that guy. Google, why are you getting in the way? Yeah.
Oh man, there are some like elaborate shows going on Netflix. Like a lot of the top shows or the ones I'm seeing recommended to me. A lot of
Mhm.
it isn't really American shows anymore. Like I have the one I've been seeing a lot is Queen Sono, and it's like only 6 episodes, so I
Mhm.
started watching it. And the best way I can describe it is the way all these websites are describing it, like Alias, but in South
Yeah.
Africa.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, like most of the shows coming up that
Wait,
like
Ray
that's like
Stevenson.
high quality premium. It's like
Ray Stevenson. Yeah, that's a guy.
it
Ray
sounds
Stevenson.
familiar. Is
He's like,
that
he always plays a badass. Like, you know, because he was in Rome. He was like Titus Pullo in Rome.
hmm.
He plays like the fat guy in Thor, like the guy with the big beard.
Okay.
Like of the
I'm
War
looking
was
at it.
Three. Like I can't remember
Yeah.
what his character's name
Oh, he
is.
was the
That
oh he
guy.
was that Punisher. Okay, he was the
That guy.
Warzone guy.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
Warzone guy. The guy who
gotcha.
like puts like leg chair legs in what, a chair leg, yeah, a chair leg in someone's eye or something. Like I think he like stabs someone in the eye, like in both eyes,
Oh,
just like chair
he was the
legs, like he
Punisher in
breaks
the
off.
Super Squad.
Yeah, man.
Oh, dude, he reprised being the Punisher in like a little kid show too.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, and
Oh my
I
God.
remember seeing one of the clips from it. I didn't know this was him though. Like one of
Yeah.
the clips, he's like, "Crime in this city is like cheese on your Brussels sprouts," or something really 5-year-oldish like that.
Jeez. You better get your
And they actually
fiber.
got.
And-
Yeah. Oh man,
Oh
this
my
guy.
God. No, it's like yeah. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Medici. Let's so something that really surprised me, that I was very shocked, is that you had not seen The Simpsons before. Is that true?
Let's get into that. Um, let's put it this way. I knew it was part of pop culture. I've seen like maybe half an episode here or there. Like it was just always around, but it was nothing I really like sat down and watched like before this. It's weird. This pop culture thing was always around, but
Yeah.
before it went on, I think it was FXX or I think before it was on Disney Plus, it was this like there's a Simpsons website that FXX put up.
Yeah,
But before, the only time you could ever really watch The Simpsons is like at like these weird times of the day or
yeah,
Sunday at 9 o'clock on Fox.
yeah,
Like it was never heavily syndicated. Like if
yeah,
anything, I grew up with South Park, Family Guy, and Futurama. Like Futurama was on
yeah,
all the time, but Simpsons was never really around. So I figured since it's on Disney Plus, just give it a shot. And I didn't really know where to go first because I'm kind of weird in that I don't really like watching things in order all the time. Like, like I look for a lot of
well,
shows that I don't have to
yeah,
watch intent. Like
yeah,
sometimes, for the most part, over this quarantine, I've been looking for shows I could like work on stuff at the same time.
yeah.
So
Well,
luckily
Simpsons
Disney
is kind
Plus,
of like that. Simpsons
yeah,
is kind of like that. Like each episode is like a different. I mean, very rarely you have like a storyline that goes through like different episodes, but like they might refer to like old episodes sometimes, like when Mr. Burns gets shot or something. Like that was a big thing.
yeah, I know who Mr. Burns is now. Yay,
Yeah,
finally.
yeah. Mr. Burns is the old guy, like who owns the power plant, who goes like, "Excellent," you know.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that guy was
Sideshow
like,
Bob,
"Smithers,
Afro. Yeah,
release the hounds." Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but
This
it's like
is
the
really,
third. It's been on for 30 years. It's just
yeah.
like,
This is the first time I'm really watching it.
dude, like The Simpsons has been like part of my life since I don't know. I was like 8 years old, which is probably too young to watch The Simpsons. I don't know, but like nowadays, probably like that's fine. But
It, that's 40. They're questioning life at this point.
yeah, no, it's like the Simpsons. Because like you talked to me about the Simpsons, like you messaged me just like yeah, I started watching the Simpsons. I was like fuck, like I have
Now,
to watch the Simpsons again. Like now, like I was like dude, I was like
yeah,
damn, I haven't watched the Simpsons in a while, and now it's on Disney Plus. Like you have all the every episode, I think, like every episode.
yeah, and I like how they split it because they have it like they have it sorted
Oh
like
yeah,
most shows, like 2 seasons, but they also have the collections. Like there's
yeah.
a
It's like tourism.
collection.
It's like
Yeah,
travel,
yeah.
cooking,
And
crime. I don't know, stuff like that.
I actually went straight to the predict collection though, because I knew about the conspiracy theories
Oh
about like
yeah,
the
yeah,
Simpsons predicted everything,
yeah.
and I thought
They
since
predicted
it's on
stuff.
Disney, yeah, 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 no, I thought since it was Disney Plus, they were gonna put the lighter ones, but part of that collection is like the episode that people say predicted 9/11, and I'm like,
Oh,
all right, Disney,
I
all
gotta watch
right.
that. Okay, I gotta watch that shit. I can't remember that episode.
It was an episode when they went to New York, and it
Uh,
was a coincidence because like the Twin Towers actually played a part in that
yeah.
episode. But when I was when I saw some of the episodes, I was like, wow, they're going there. And it's like I haven't watched like good satire in a long time. And
Hmm.
like when I was watching like all the stuff in the Predict collection, I was like it feels like Family Guy, but not on crack.
Yeah.
Like it feels like something you could watch comfortably, and like I could see why it wouldn't necessarily get that old because it's
Not
like
really. I mean,
it's
like it's pretty universal. Like it's. I mean, except for maybe obvious, like there's like episodes with Clinton and maybe like George Bush Senior.
yeah,
Like when I think it's like it's after he was president, like because I think, oh no, shit. No, it's like because like George Bush Senior, like he hated The Simpsons when he was
yeah.
president and he kept criticizing it. So like they decided to make an episode where George H.W. Bush becomes Homer's neighbor. And, and then they just like, I think they get into a fist fight or something. It's like, it's really amazing episode. But yeah, I have
Yeah,
to, if I find it, I'll send it to you. It's really
yeah.
good. It's really good.
It's just great just because like this is the first time everybody can watch like the older episodes too, the stuff that came
Yeah.
out in like the 90s
Yeah.
and
Like those,
before.
yeah, those were the ones I used to watch. Like, I watched I had like a cassette collection that was just like the Halloween, the
Yeah,
Simpsons Halloween specials.
yeah,
And you just had like a four VHS tape collection with
yeah,
actually it was like two. So you had like two episodes per VHS tape. So
yeah,
you're like, and then you're like, okay, next tape. And
Yeah.
like I think until 2010, I had only seen like the episodes from season 1 to 8, maybe. And then I
Yeah.
realized like, and then I was like, after the internet kind of like happened, I was like, wow, there's so many more episodes. I didn't know that. And
Yeah. It is weird too, because like I think what turned me off from The Simpsons before is that like back when it was just kind of around, I might
Mhm.
have seen an episode or two, but it was from like way later. And it's like The Simpsons only really works when it feels kind of scrappy.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as like a glossy show
Yeah.
or like what it is now, the fact that it's such a pop culture behemoth, but it's like
Yeah.
it works better as just something crudely drawn. And then I remember South Park used to make the joke that like The Simpsons did it first, and I'm watching through all these episodes and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, man.
Family Guy's the exact
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah, man. They did first. Thing is like they needed to because they were like, okay, we've already done this, that, like what are we gonna do next season? Like season 15. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's like South Park around season 15. I think they're around like season 20 or something, right? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like season 15, it kind of went down, man. Or season 16, I think. It's like when they started talking because they had this whole arc about ads,
Yeah.
people like actual like robots, like people becoming like ads becoming sentient and becoming like alive or something.
Or
Like there's
was
a
it
whole arc
South
about that.
Park or
Yeah, South Park,
Simpson?
man. South
Oh,
Park. It's
South
just
Park,
like
yeah.
weird, weird. Like that was a lot of fun. But then like the episode after that, because it was about political correctness, I think,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like the whole,
I remember
it's like the only place where the only it's like the only people who can or the only thing that can survive in a politically correct environment are ads, you know.
that.
They're like they will thrive.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, and then like I think they were planning on Donald Trump to lose, and then their next season was going to be something about like whatever. But then Donald Trump won, and then that season when Donald Trump became president, they didn't know what they were doing. I think they just rewrote whatever they were planning on doing. It was just like because then like
Yeah.
Mr. Garrison became like the president
Oh.
in what's his name? Mr. Yeah, it's Mr. Garrison. I think he's like their gay teacher.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I
You
forgot that.
know,
The one that turned
like
when then turned back into a man or whatever.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And then like he like he's supposed to be like the Donald Trump surrogate kind of thing, like in the
Yeah.
TV show.
Yeah.
And like he paints his face orange with like Cheetos or something. Like, I don't know. I haven't watched South Park in years, like honestly. Like I haven't watched it. But like
Yeah.
I have moments where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna check it out. And then I'll come back to it, watch like 5 episodes, and like, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, it's good
Oh
to go
man,
back
so
to The
like
Simpsons.
yeah,
Where
like
it
The
all
Simpsons.
started.
Yeah, man. So like yeah, popping your Simpson cherry, man. Like that's
No, yeah, it's a comfort show now,
yeah.
finally. Like The Office, I started late, but now I can't live without it.
It's like what's really cool about like I was playing the Simpsons the other day and I just fell asleep. I was just like it lulled me to bed. Like it was just like it's not that it was boring. It's just like it was late. I just wanted to watch something that I can just chill to, and yeah, I just like lulled me to sleep.
Nice.
And The Simpsons is like my is should be everyone's source of comfort. You
Yeah.
know,
It has to be. I said
uh,
so.
yeah. So like, dude, like one of the so I guess like for our listeners like listening, like one of the reasons why we're really going into like the whole streaming thing is because like the quarantine is essentially I think making movie theaters bankrupt. Like it's
Yep.
all VOD now, right? Like
Hmm.
streaming or VOD.
Yep.
Like Trolls World Tour. Did you watch that?
Yeah. No, but yeah, I'll get into like what the whole controversy is happening right
Yeah.
now because because movie theaters are closing down and places like AMC were rumored of going bankrupt, which I'm surprised about because they're the biggest alongside Regal. Um, the I don't think I can explain the whole distribution process on this podcast, but the way it basically works is that studios basically make deals with theaters to make sure that like whatever revenue comes in and whatever popcorn sales and stuff, it's a win-win for everybody. Well, Trolls World Tour was one of the first movies to be a new release because there were already like some like month-old movies that went to like video on demand during this time.
Yeah,
But
like
Trolls World Tour
yeah,
was
Harley
the
Quinn.
first, yeah, Harley Quinn, like Onward and all that. But Trolls World Tour was the first one to come out on VOD the same day it was supposed to be
Hmm.
released in theaters, and they made way more than like $100 million. Basically, it was like $20 a piece, and they made way more money,
Yeah,
like basically comparable to what they would have made in the theaters.
yeah,
So part of that controversy is that apparently Universal Pictures has been um, pushing for a shorter theater time, or they've been shooting for going straight to VOD for a long time. And basically, through all the frustration that happened because of the outbreak,
yeah,
AMC and Regal both announced that they will not be playing Universal movies anytime soon. They're
yeah.
going to, and they made it very clear in the letter that it's not just a momentary thing, that even after all this is over, they're planning to not show any Universal movies. And yeah, that includes like they just released a trailer for Pete Davidson's King of Staten Island. If you look
Hmm.
at the comments, people are excited about that movie, but and it was planned as of last week to go straight to VOD. But now after all this, it would have had no choice. And Universal Studios is it's a big company.
Hmm.
Like we know
Yeah,
this, and they
yeah,
and basically anything that's not almost anything that's not a superhero franchise that's a big movie franchise they own, like a current franchise like Fast and Furious, Despicable Me, Jurassic World.
yeah.
So
Like all the Marvel movies. Well,
oh
that's Disney, right?
yeah, that's just
But,
yeah. But
but
like
yeah,
Universal owns a lot of those franchises, and
yeah,
actually, before Invisible Man went to video on demand, they were breaking records with that movie too, because a lot of Blumhouse's movies get released through them.
mhm,
So Universal probably profits a lot from that. So if most movies aren't gonna theaters aren't gonna play your movies, then and you're pushing for VOD, then
they're
would it
like,
be a
fine.
win-win? Would this only work for family movies? Like,
Yeah,
are we going to stage? Are is th- has Universal been foreseeing the future? Because
yeah,
you already
maybe.
have movies from other companies too that are going straight to video on demand, like The Lovebirds or something from Paramount. But
Mm.
have they been foreseeing the future? And to me, I don't. I don't think so. Like, especially after all of this, people are going to want to go back to the movies. Like, if you don't live in an area that has a lot of plays or like a lot of theaters, then your only really go out option to like sit back and watch a story is the movie theaters.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's not going anywhere, and this is more of a hit to Universal than anything. So
yeah. Well, it's. I think like we can't really predict the future, right? But it's
right,
like it's been a trend that less and less people go to the movies, and they
right.
only come for like these big cinematic franchises or like big movies. Like, the
Mhm,
movie I was thinking, like when you're talking, I was thinking about the movie 1917.
mhm,
That is a movie that you want to watch at the theater.
mhm,
Like that is a movie that you really like, Avengers Endgame,
mhm.
Justice League if it had been better, like stuff like that. But like King of Staten Island, like for example, like I'd be fine just watching it from home. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't seem to me like, I mean, I haven't watched the trailer, but anything with Pete Davidson that isn't like Suicide Squad, I feel like, hey, I don't need to see this on a huge screen to appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I heard that one of the Russo brothers, he like I think it was on Twitter or in an interview, like he said that he thought like his opinion is that when we open theaters again, like they should just show Infinity War or Endgame, just to get people to watch again,
Yeah.
to watch it again or something. So like, yeah, because everyone loves those movies, and it's good to watch a movie that you know already and that you're like comforted by. So probably
Yeah.
any. But it's
Yeah.
like, like Infinity War is awesome, but the ending is a bit disturbing. And probably
Yeah.
like you're gonna feel those COVID vibes right there. But it's like,
Yeah.
but
There
it's
are a few movies out there though that no matter how old they are, if you put them back in the theaters, it will
yeah,
have an audience. Like there was a
yeah.
string of there was like a few years where there was just a bunch of re-releases. Like I think Star Wars was re-released in theaters and Titanic
Hmm.
and all of that. Chances are Avatar is going to go back before too many
Avatar.
people come back. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
like
they should just show like the Nolan Batman movies, Avatar,
yeah.
Superman, but like the Christopher Reeve Superman.
Oh,
I don't know. Just to see those like old special effects on a huge screen would be hilarious. But it's just like it's just like he's floating, you know, like
yeah.
traditional Superman movies. Like that is not realistic.
Oh,
But
man.
yeah, it's a weird time right now, and I think movie theaters are gonna survive, but I think it's gonna be like in a different way probably than what we know them. Like I heard that AMC, I think they want, I don't know if they have already, but they're thinking about like applying for like bankruptcy because like all
Mhm.
their theaters are closed. The only thing they offer now is VOD.
Mhm.
Uh, but like I think recently there was this movie that I really liked with Shia LaBeouf that's on VOD, like on AMC. It's called, what's it called? Peanut Butter Falcon.
Mhm.
And that was a really cool movie. Like, and then like I watched Parasite on VOD, like on the AMC website.
Oh, nice.
It was pretty cool. Now it's on Hulu, so I'm not gonna bother. But,
Yeah.
but it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, I think it should be a package deal, right? Maybe like that's how
Mhm.
they might survive. It's like, hey, you can watch it. Maybe if you buy a movie ticket, you get to watch it again, like at home for like a week. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
It's like,
No, that's actually not a
but
bad idea.
cool,
That's actually
right? Right? Hey, let's do that.
yeah, yeah.
It's gonna be the What We Binge like movie theaters. We'll just buy the one on 42nd Street. Uh,
We'll buy the AMC one when it
and
comes.
we'll buy the AMC ones. Like, hey, MC, I'll give you like like two chocolate bars for it. And
Chocolate.
chocolate. I love my chocolate.
Chocolate. Yeah. I don't
Dude.
know. I don't know. I guess they were worried. There's a lot of worry about the independent movie theaters, but with the bigger ones, it's like there's a slim profit margin when it comes to like running a movie theater nowadays.
Yeah.
And like I felt like corp the more corporate ones would probably struggle more, but if they file for bankruptcy, like they have a lot more that they can sell off.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where their benefit is. So to me, AMC is going nowhere. It's just going to be under new management. Somebody else is
Yeah.
going to buy the name. Yeah.
Gonna be bought by some company in I don't know, in Vietnam or something.
Yeah. Oh no.
No, like
China.
Putin's
Yeah.
gonna buy it. Putin's gonna buy it. It'll be like, you show my Russian movies now.
Exactly.
And,
AMC Russian propaganda movies. Oh god, that'll
yeah,
be weird.
yeah,
That's
it's gonna be
sounds
called RMC. Like it's
uh,
like
that
it's on
sounds like
American movies
idiocracy.
and it's like RMC. RMC. Yeah. But it's a crazy time. Like I heard, like I saw this. They were talking about Tarantino's latest movie and how it was like a statement about his own career and how like the movie business is changing. Because like in the
Yeah.
movie, it's in a pivotal point in like Hollywood history.
Yeah.
Because like Leo DiCaprio's character feels like he's being left behind and everything because like the independent filmmakers are becoming the hot new thing, and now it's sort of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It's you know it's going to be like Patreon. Everyone has a Patreon. Like Martin Scorsese has a Patreon now.
Wait, what?
No, no, I'm making that up.
I was like, yeah. I mean, he
Maybe
does
you
have to
should.
like,
Maybe you
he,
should.
he, I mean, he does have to
Yeah.
struggle to like fund his movies now. So, I mean, yeah, but still, that's sad.
It's like I think well, I mean like it's like the internet has really leveled the playing field in a way, not as much as people think, but still.
Yeah,
But hey, you want to be a filmmaker, you get like you become a YouTuber or something, then you make your movie out of that money or something, and you get your Patreon going on, and then you get sponsors and stuff like that. It's much more. I don't know if it's more scrappy than it used to be. I mean, it probably was really scrappy back then. It's like you had one script that you walked around, like you walked around New York. It's like, hey, you want to do my movie? And
yeah,
it's like, it's like I don't know you. It's like, yeah, but I live here. It's like, oh, it's like
yeah,
nowadays you can be like, hey, I have a website, I have followers, you can check my stuff out. Like
yeah,
back then, was like, hey, here's a piece of paper,
yeah,
with my idea.
yeah. I mean, like after watching, there's another Star Wars documentary. I think it was called like Empire of Dreams, and it was from before Revenge of the Sith even came out, probably
Yeah.
like right before.
Hmm.
And then the thing I noticed is that whenever there's a time like this of economic turmoil in Hollywood, or they're bought by corporations, or people don't know what to do with it, there's always a rise in independent filmmakers,
Yeah.
or in like inviting a lot of independent filmmakers. So somehow that's going to happen in the next few years. There's going to be another upturn,
Yeah.
because like without periods like that, we wouldn't have George Lucas. We wouldn't have, like you said, Quentin Tarantino. We wouldn't have
We wouldn't have
like
Scorsese. We wouldn't have
yeah.
what's his name? Roman Polanski, who is a character in Tarantino's movie.
Oh yeah,
But
he
like,
was.
yeah, he is. Yeah, yeah. But like, I mean, that guy. I don't know where he's at now. Like, he was locked up a few years ago for
He's in exile
allegedly
still.
doing things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think they prosecuted him. I think they proved it, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to say anything that's wrong. I don't want to get sued. Like
We need
Roman
sponsors.
Polanski, I will sue you for saying things that are wrong. You know,
Yeah.
like nothing's worse than an angry, independent Polish filmmaker. It's like,
I'm all the way over here just for you, Rev.
it's like I came over
Oh,
here,
yeah.
came all the way, It's like, came all the way to Chipotle to track you down. And,
Here you are.
like,
Ah!
it's like- no, but yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, I think we need to. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think
No,
we're
I
good.
think that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been a pretty good week. It's been a pretty good week. I think we had some good movies come out, some
Mm.
good content. Let's see what next week brings. And
Yep.
yeah, and we hope that everyone's safe. Stay safe, guys. Wash your hands, wash your face. Like don't touch your face unless you're washing it.
Yep. Wear your
Uh,
mask, all that,
Wear your
whatever.
mask, social distancing, 6 feet apart, guys.
Yeah. It's like you're just reading the brochure at this point. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have a brochure. It's written on my hand. And, and yeah, thing is, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and you can follow us on Instagram at What We Binge to follow all of our movie recommendations, or you can come back next week to listen to our ramblings and preferences about movies. And yeah, anything to say, Mike?
no.
Okay, cool. Have a good day, guys.
Have a
Have a
good
good
day, Raf.
have a good
Peace.
day, Mike. Bye.
Good, good.